About 20 years ago, a recent law school graduate called Tucker Max started posting his experiences, the details of his dating life, on the internet. He became a sensation. He wrote a bunch of best-selling books, sold millions of copies, the most famous of which was called I Hope They Serve Beer in Hell. Not everyone liked Tucker Max. A lot of people hated Tucker Max, but nobody could deny that he was smart. He was a beautiful prose stylist, not something you normally find in people writing about hooking up with ladies and getting loaded, but he was. And then he retired around 2012. He stopped writing about that stuff and receded from public view. And then a few years ago, he reemerged as a very different person, as someone whose entire life was devoted to his own family at a level most people can't relate to. He became a homesteader. What an interesting progression. We thought it'd be worth spending some time hearing how that happened and what it's like to truly prepare for the bad times on behalf of your family. Tucker Max joins us in studio now. Tucker Max, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
It was great to meet you.
Yes, you too.
So I just have to add, mostly I want to hear about what you're doing now, but I just have to ask, like, how did you wind up, you went to University of Chicago undergrad?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Famously the least fun school in America.
It's earned its reputation.
It's earned its reputation. And then you went to Duke Law School, which is a douche factory, obviously.
Yes. No, it is. I can't argue.
But then you wrote these accounts of your life, which sounded like you were in a fraternity at Alabama.
Yeah.
Like, how did this happen?
Well, it's the benefit of going to the least fun undergrad, is I didn't have any of my experiences in college when I was too young to appreciate how fun they were. And I kind of started having them in law school when, because I got to law school. I graduated in 3 years from Chicago. And the cool part about Chicago is I got to law school and I'd basically already learned, the hard parts of law school. So I was like, well, this is easy. I don't need to go to class. Like, I know all of this. I know how to think. All the stuff law school is supposed to teach you, I already learned. And then I had all my friends were dudes who went to state schools. They were the smart kids at state schools, like Kansas or Pitt or UVA. Yeah. And so it was like, and they knew how to party. And I'm like, oh, I didn't have anyone like you guys with me in undergrad. Let's go do this more. And then, of course, we were by UNC, which was all girls. It's not literally an all-girls school, but it might as well be. No, it is like 65%
No
girls.
dudes at UNC.
Well, the dudes are just like the iconic stereotype of the foppish Southern frat boy types.
Yeah.
And so for me, it was like hunting at a petting zoo. It was so easy. We'd go over there and be beautiful girls and these douchebag idiot guys. And it was like, oh, this is great. And so we had a great time. And then we all left law school, went to different cities, and I went to Florida and I hated it. Like, this is...
To work in a firm?
No, I got fired from a big law firm called Fenwick & West in Silicon Valley. I got fired about 3 weeks into being a summer associate, actually, not even a full-time employee. And so I was essentially blacklisted.
How'd you get
fired? Oh, it's impossible to get fired. And I did it in 3 weeks. Basically, I was an unguided missile, man. I was drunk at all the firm events. I did all that stuff. That actually wasn't the problem. The thing I did that caused them to fire me, and honestly, I'm not even mad at them. They did what I would have done if I would have been a partner there. One of the senior female partners propositioned me, wanted to hook up with me. She was married. Not that meant anything to me at the time.
Or to female lawyers, by
well, not to her. I don't know. But I'm not going to say all
You're
the
not
rest.
Generalize. Let me do. I'll handle the generalization here.
To her, it didn't obviously mean anything. And for some reason, I turned her down and then told everyone about it, which is like the worst. If I had slept with her, I'd have been bulletproof. And if I just shut up, no one would have cared. But I kind of did the worst of all worlds. And so, I was a liability. I mean, you can't have someone acting like that in a law firm.
Would turn down a partner's advance and then tell others about it. I mean, the Bar Association could get involved at that point. That is a violation of ethics. And
it's intelligence. Like, what's wrong with you? Why are you so dumb? There's a way to play this game and you're doing it totally wrong. And I was. And so, so even that wouldn't have blacklisted me from the legal profession. But I wrote 2 days before she propositioned me, or before they fired me, I had gotten drunk at a firm event and caused kind of a scene, although it was kind of funny. And so I wrote an email about it that was pretty funny. I sent it to my friends.
What was the scene?
We had like a charity auction, and I got up and I took the mic from like the auctioneer And I was yelling at this girl because she was bidding against me and the price was high. I'm like, stop bidding. I can't afford this. And I need this to stay at the firm. And like, it was like kind of like a funny, like, it was like, like the funny drunken person at a corporate event. Like I really didn't go too far, but I went right up to that line.
As a summer associate, the line is lower for you.
Right, exactly. Like they even the managing partner thought it was hilarious. And so, and I wrote an email about that, not about the female partner. Sent that to my friends, like on a Tuesday, and then like on Wednesday, I was fired. They didn't even wait till Friday. On a Wednesday.
Smart.
Right. And so, of course, my friends are assholes. And so they sent that to all their friends, and then it like went out from there. And so that, like everyone in the legal profession got that email that summer. Like I was there's always legends about, I was one of the legends that ended up turning it into.
And was your plan at that point to spend your life in big law?
Yeah, it was. It really was. I hate to say it. The God's honest truth is I was the worst kind of, like, okay, so I was deciding out of undergrad whether to go to iBanking, management consulting, or law. Like, and I was that type of dude. I had that
seeking
mindset.
Soul death.
No, I was seeking status without merit, which is what everyone in those professions is doing. Thing. Right? And that's just you could not have convinced me that it was not a viable or valuable path for my soul to go make a bunch of money for bullshit, which is what you do in those professions. Yes. And I bought it. I bought the whole thing, hook, line, and sinker. And so I was going after that. But I think there was obviously a part of me, like the, whatever you want to call it.
The drunk at the work event part.
Who clearly did not want that. There was a part of me, like some people, like you'll be mass murderers who want to get caught.
Of course.
Well, I wanted to get kicked. I didn't have the truth. I love to make myself out to be a hero, but the true story is I didn't have the courage to realize that it was a horrible, soulless path that I didn't want to go to. So I acted out until they fired me and kicked me out of the profession.
So when that email went throughout the tiny and very inward-looking legal world, what kind of response did you get?
They almost didn't let me come back for my senior year or my third year at Duke.
No.
Yeah, like the
it got back to Duke.
Oh, of course, it got everyone. Like if I had wanted to stay in the legal profession, I would have had to be like a public defender. Like there was I'm serious. No one was going to.
Not that low. Yeah. A divorce attorney.
Maybe JAG. I might have been able to be a JAG officer. JAG. That would have been it, man.
Wind up like David French. Hilarious. Sorry, that's so. I love legal jokes. So Duke was mad. So at this point, you realize, like,
the only reason she let me come back and finish my third year, I'm not really sure.
She generally just
no.
She?
The
lady at Duke who makes those decisions.
The head of I forget what her exact title was, but the only reason she let me back was because I promised not to walk at graduation. Like I was going to graduate, and so it was like basically if I wasn't there at which I didn't care about going to anyway, because I knew I wasn't going to get a job in a legal profession. I just wanted to finish for two reasons. One is because I didn't want to quit and not have my degree. Right? Which probably honestly would have been the best thing for me. But I was one of those where I want to actually have the, I don't want to say I went to Duke Law School. I have the JD, which I do. But then also, I had it was like my party years. Like everyone else's party years are in undergrad. Mine were in law school.
Had you been in a fraternity in college?
No.
It's pretty funny.
Yeah, I know.
Since you invented this genre of fraternity literature.
The New York Times said I invented fratire, and I wasn't in a frat, and I didn't write satire. It's memoir I wrote. But that's the New York Times, right? Like they're gonna.
They know about genres anyway.
They're gonna get literally everything wrong.
Of course they are.
Yeah.
So what did you decide to do with your life at this point? I mean, you're kind of out of options, right?
Yeah, it was not a good situation for me because where I was I had enough courage to get drunk and ruin a future I didn't want, but not enough courage to recognize that that's what I was doing. So I was in like this tough situation. My dad owned some restaurants in Florida. And so kind of I was still kind of looking for the easy path, right? Like law, and iBanking and management consulting, even though you're working 100-something hour weeks, they really are the easy path. They are the soulless, easy, coward path.
Yes.
And so the next coward path for me was the family business. And I never really wanted to go into restaurants or the family business, but now I'm like, well, this is, the two things I've trained for, I wasn't good at, so I'm not allowed to anymore. So I kind of went that path. And then I got fired from the family business in like 6 months. It took me 6 months instead of 3 weeks this time.
How'd you get fired from the family business?
Oh, that's a long story. Basically, I was good at this. Now I was good because it's restaurant business, right? And I'm smart and outgoing. And if you're smart and outgoing, the restaurant business is designed for people who don't fit anywhere else, but are kind of smart and capable. And so I was good at it. The problem was, I assumed that my dad wanted to run a good business. I didn't realize the business existed for my dad's ego. And so I got in and realized, there's all kinds of people here who suck, who are stealing from him, there's all these things we could be doing better. I mean, really basic stuff. Like, why are we ordering from this company? They're charging twice as much as this company. It turns out that company's giving my dad kickbacks. And then these people who are incompetent stealing from him, feed my dad's ego in a way that he values way more than what they're stealing. And so I essentially, but like a fool, just like I didn't sleep with a partner and told everyone, I went in, recognized these people were clowns, and was like, oh, well, this is my dad and my name's on the door. So clearly the fact that I'm right is more than enough. I told them that they sucked and that I was going to get them fired. And they were smart enough and knew my dad well enough. They rallied kind of the troops and got enough evidence against me that my dad picked them over me, and I got fired.
Amazing. So now you're a graduate of two of the most prestigious schools in the country, but you're unemployed. You've washed out of...
And unemployable.
So what do you do?
Man, I was not in a good spot. It was a hard time for me. And I was basically like... bartending, work, like the kind of jobs that losers in their 20s get. That was me. Like, I was a loser in my 20s, early 20s. And then I was, at the same time, I was writing emails to my friends from law school about living in South Florida, which is a soulless, horrible place, because I don't do drugs and I'm not old. So there was no social niche for me in South Florida, right? Because if you do coke and you go to clubs,
right,
South Florida's great. And if you're like 70, and, play golf in the Boca Country Club, then it's great. But there's nothing else. And so I hated my life. But, I'd get drunk and hook up with girls anyway and get in these horrible situations and write emails about it and send to my friends. And one of my friends, you actually might even, do you know Sean Trendy at Real Clear Politics?
Yeah.
Okay. So Sean went to law school with me and is a good friend of mine. He's a great dude. And he actually called me up and he was getting the emails. And he's like, dude, listen, you're not good at law. You're not good at business, clearly. But these emails are the funniest things I've ever read. You need to go be a writer. And I was like, what kind of bitch shit is this? What are you talking about, Sean? This is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. And he's like, well, dude, look at the evidence, right? And so,
what a wise piece of advice.
It was Sean that gave it to me. I'm a writer because of Sean Trendy. Truly.
Amazing.
Yes, it is 100% true. And so, I took that path because of Sean. I was already writing. I just wasn't envisioning that as a profession for me or doing that. And so, I ended up putting my stuff on I took like the 5 emails that my friends thought were the funniest. I sent them to every publisher and every book agent in New York. Because at the time, publishing was still all in New York. And there was actually this was 2001, 2002. There's a physical book of like all the agents' addresses and all like their query stuff. Because you're old enough to remember this.
Yeah, very well.
I probably sent out 1,000 query letters, maybe between 500 and 1,000. I got literally zero positive response. Like 90% nothing, right? And then probably got like 50 form letter rejections. And I even got I still have a couple of them, a couple personalized rejections where like, the editor was like, this is the worst thing I've ever read. You should never write even an email again. Like, you have no place in publishing. But at the same time, I was sending my emails, like all the emails I'd forwarded to my friends they would forward those. Like, not just the ones that got me fired, but the funny ones after. And I was getting my emails forwarded back to me. Remember early in internet email chains?
Yeah.
Okay. So I was getting my own emails forwarded back to me from people in other social circles who didn't know I had written them, being like, dude, you should read this. This is so funny. And I'm like, all right, so clearly I'm good at this. Like, Sean was right. These are funny. to people who aren't friends. I'm like, all right, I mean, it is arrogant to think this, but all these people in publishing are wrong. Now I know publishing. I'm like, of course they're all wrong. They're all idiots. Like pretty much everyone in publishing is there because they're a failed writer. It's not literally everyone, but almost. I didn't know that at the time, but I was like, all right, well, they're not going to publish me. But then the internet was a thing at the time. This is 2002. And so I had to learn to program HTML. I put up a site on GeoCities, if you remember GeoCities. Yeah. And it's like I got featured on like College Humor and a few other like those humor blogs that were really, really early, and it blew up. And MTV came and did a documentary about people who were dating on because back when like dating on the internet was weird and creepy and all. And so they did a documentary about me, and that blew up. And then all the publishing companies came back and they were like, yeah, we want to write your books. And then that became I Hope They Serve Beer in Hell.
How many books did you write? How many did you sell?
I wrote 4 Fratire books. One I gave away for free, so it didn't count, but 3 like were published. All 3 were, New York Times bestsellers. I think I've sold about 4.5-ish million of those books. Yeah.
That's incredible.
It was, especially because my audience were essentially people who don't read. I can't tell you how many dudes in my life, it's been tens of thousands, have told me I've never finished a book, read a book, or bought a book other than yours. No, right?
I believe that.
Like tens of thousands.
So why'd you stop? And when did you stop?
Because my books were my stories about doing all the dumb stuff guys, and a lot of women also do in their 20s. Drinking, hooking up, partying, all that stuff. And then by the time, I started writing at 27. By the time I got to about 33, 34, I was like pretty tired of it. Like drinking and partying and, going out 5 nights a week is super fun when you're at a certain stage in life. And I was way past that stage of life. And it was becoming tedious and tiresome. And the cost of that lifestyle was really, not just the physical cost, but the emotional cost was catching up to me. And, honestly, man, like everyone who goes through, some people go through that phase for a week and some do it for a decade. I was more towards the decade side of it, but it was, I was feeling stuck, man. Like you can't move on at life if you have to be this person that is doing a thing at a certain phase, right? And that's, dude, it was so depressing because all my fans would come to me. And, I do public events all the time, speeches, whatever. And they were all really upset if I wasn't the Tucker Max they envisioned in their head. Right. And at the time, I would get really mad at them. Like, fuck you, I'm a whole person. But that was my own immaturity. Like, they liked me because of my stories and because of a certain attitude I had and a certain way I was in a certain part of my life. And some of them realized, that's just part of his life.
Mick Jagger has to sing Satisfaction at every show.
Right.
Yeah.
And I wasn't going to sing Satisfaction the rest of my life. Like I eventually, as I matured a little, I'm like, look, what am I doing getting mad at them? Like even the dumb, immature ones, like the smart, mature ones got it. They read the books, thought they were funny, didn't expect me to be, but that was 20%, right? Most people like, they would come up and they have this multi-year relationship with me that has nothing to do with me. Right? It's totally unilateral and it's all about a projection in their mind of who I am based only on the books. And that was, it got really tiring after a while. And then instead of trying to fight it and getting mad at them, I'm like, all right, well, I just need to move on with my life. And so I wrote, the last in the series was Assholes Finish First. And I put it like a retirement at the end where I'm like, I'm not going to write this stuff, talk about it anymore. Like I've done with this part of my life. And then that kind of did set me free. Although most people who know me from that stuff. And so even now, bro, for years afterwards, like I would be at Whole Foods and a kid would, like a younger kid or something would come up to me and be like, it's your Tucker Max. And I'm like, why aren't you, drunk screaming curses at people laying under a table? And I'm like, it's 11 a.m. on a Thursday. Like, what is wrong with you, dude? But even now, to this day, a lot of people, their impression of me, even after they meet me, is still.
How did you find a wife?
Based on that.
I mean, so you've like laid bare your personal life.
Yeah.
And you sold 4.5 million copies of books about hooking up with various women.
Right. I told the truth about things most people don't ever tell the truth about.
For sure.
Yes.
So Like, what did that teach you about what you wanted in a wife?
Well, it definitely showed me very much what I don't want.
Yeah.
Because a lot of I was with a lot of women in that period. I was single. I was into women. I wrote about it, and then women who were at that stage, the same stage as me, came to me, and so there were a lot. And I realized, man, there's so much. The big thing, man, was I realized I needed a woman who was very smart, who was very sweet and empathic, but most importantly, I needed a woman who really had her own thing in life, who really thought for herself, who really was her own person, right? Because 3 or 4 years before I retired, I would have been really happy with the hottest girl there was, who was pretty sweet and basically a trophy wife, right? I would have been totally cool with that. And then by the time I got to be about 32, 33, 34, I realized, oh, thank God I didn't get married. I would have been so miserable with that. I would have hated that. I would have been divorced within 5, 6 years. I realized I needed a partner. And then I started to understand what a partner actually would look like for me at that point. That's the crazy thing, man. I think I had to go through hundreds or thousands of women to realize how lonely I was and how lonely that life is after a while.
Yeah.
It's the metaphor I always use is imagine that, like, because dudes don't get this, man. They don't understand. Women do. Most women understand what I mean when I talk about this, because most guys have to go their whole life. It doesn't matter how good looking you are, how smart or how rich you are. You have to work for women. You have to have game. You have to talk to them. You have to be good in some way, at least connecting with a woman. But once you get famous, all that's out the window. Like, you don't have to really do anything but other than be famous. And there's a million examples of this, of dudes who have no business being with any women who are famous, who get all kinds of women. And you can't understand what that's like as a dude, because you've spent your whole life, like, imagine living on a desert island and you're scraping out an existence and you have food, but never enough. And then all of a sudden you get picked up off of that desert island and you get moved into a Chinese buffet and you live at the Chinese buffet and you're like, oh, and you're going to gorge yourself for a while, or the best Vegas buffet you can ever imagine.
Yeah. Golden Corral forever.
Right. You're going to gorge yourself for a while. In fact, you're going to gorge yourself until you throw up a few times, and then you're going to keep gorging yourself. And that was what my life was like. Because women are always a scarcity for you as a dude. It doesn't matter how rich or you are, or how good looking you are, how smart you are. There's still a scarcity until you become famous. And then they're in abundance. But for women, penis is in abundance from the time that they probably pre-puberty for a lot of them, right? Like, there's always dudes around, and so women can kind of understand that. I didn't understand that at all. And then I kind of had to revel in that abundance for a while and wallow in it until it became, like all abundance, becomes sickening, and you have to kind of,
like all abundance. That's right.
Right. And you've got to really, okay, I don't want everything. Here's the things, here's what's healthy, here's what I want. Let me figure out what that is. So in a lot of ways, it's funny, people like will say, like, your intro is really good. Like, it seems like a 180-degree turnaround. From where I sit, having lived it, I couldn't have gotten to be a dedicated father and husband and homesteader if I hadn't gone through that phase of unbridled abundance and hedonism. I needed that.
It's just interesting that you had all the women you wanted, but you just wanted one in the end.
Eventually, yes. Don't get me wrong. If my wife was cool with 2 or 3, I might be all right with that too. Like, yeah. but no. It was lots and lots of different women was not an effective way to fill the hole of loneliness.
Yes, that's right.
For a while, I thought it worked, but it doesn't work long term.
No, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
I mean, abundance doesn't work.
But Tucker, you could not have convinced me of that with any words when I was 29.
Right. Well,
I would have.
It's an age thing. No, it's totally right. I've arrived at the same conclusion. But how did you get? Okay, so now you are not just a husband and a father, but that's basically your job.
Yeah, I sold my company, and it's all I do now.
But what motivated your desire to make that your life? Like, and what is homesteading, and why do you do it?
So I didn't come up with this goal ahead of time and then do it. I I discovered this path as I walked it, right? So after I retired from writing, the stories of drinking and hooking up, I retired from frat tire. What ended up happening is I was still a really well-known author, and a lot of people came to me to help them write their books. So I started a company called Scribe that David Goggins, I'm sure we did his books, and Tiffany Haddish and some other people like that. And we did about, from the time I started until when I left, which was 2022, like 2,000 books. And so we were kind of the premier like independent ghostwriting publishing firm, right? And we built a great company, 500 employees. Me and my co-founder Zach built a great company, and it was rewarding. And I kind of went through the entrepreneurial phase of life. Before I thought I was entrepreneurial, but I was an artist, and being an artist and running a business with employees are totally different things.
Oh, I found out. Yes.
Totally different things.
Yes.
And I did not understand.
I only do one of those things, not the other.
Yeah. So there was a lot rewarding with it, and it started the business. I met my wife first, then started the business, and as the business grew and developed, and I saw a very clear path to a lot of money, big valuations, expansion, all this stuff. But at the same time, my relationship with my wife and my kids, and as my kids got older, even though my kids are still pretty young, I was like, And then I was in a lot of social groups and masterminds with pretty advanced and successful entrepreneurs who had way bigger companies than me and who were older and had older kids. And I saw kind of how miserable they were in a lot of ways, and like how much time they spent on their business, how little they spent with their families. And then I would like meet their kids and be like, something's off there. Not all of them. Some of them had great balance and some didn't. And I just kind of realized, man, that as much as I like business and I like entrepreneurship, I didn't love it. And I definitely didn't love it more than my wife or my kids. And I realized I don't know when I came to this realization, but I came to the realization that the only thing that matters in my life is the relationships with the people I love and the things I do that matter to them. And yeah, I mean, like having a company to make money that's important, but above a certain level, like what am I doing? I'm just stealing from my children. I'm stealing my father from their children. Or I'm stealing my children's father from them, which is me. And I decided I just wasn't going to do that. Like that 200 million or $1 billion is not worth that. 20 million isn't even worth that. It's not worth it.
But most people have this realization, decide, okay, we're going to spend a year and sail to New Zealand.
Right.
But you decided to buy a homestead in Texas.
Yes.
And grow your own food, raise your own food.
Yeah.
Why?
Well, there were a couple reasons. So you were around 2020, 2021.
Yes.
Right? So I don't have to describe all that, but
well, how did it affect you? I mean, you weren't working in politics, right? Or
yeah, no. I wrote a piece on this on my blog about how I thought I was awake to how the world worked. Because I'd worked in the entertainment business. You have too. You understand media and entertainment, and if you work in that business, you see behind the curtain and how messed up everything is. And I saw how evil Hollywood was long before the Me Too stuff. And I knew, like, everyone in Hollywood knew Weinstein was a rapist. And like, I thought I understood. But then 2020 happened and the lockdowns happened and all this. And I was like, oh, it's way worse than I ever thought. Like I saw a little bit behind the curtain,
but that was a public health emergency.
Of course it was. Right. Of course. And
did you think that for a moment? Did you think any of this was just like, what did you,
yeah, so,
you grew up in this country. Like, tell us what you thought.
So when I was watching the videos of people dying in the street in China, like early March of 2020, there was a window of about 6 weeks. I was probably fooled. 3 to 6 weeks. I'm
yeah,
like,
me too.
Right.
Scary.
This might be legit. This might be an actual epidemic, a pandemic. This might be like whatever. And so you can actually look on my Twitter timeline. There's when South by was canceled in 2020, I was for that. I was like, oh yeah, that was like March 15th of 2020. I was totally for that. But then by mid-April, I'm like, hold on. Like nothing about this seems right.
Yeah.
And by May, I'm like, oh, well, this is a fraud. Like this is clearly a fraud. And then the riots started and it was like, I mean, the iconic photo of the CNN with the Chiron, mostly peaceful protests and there's fire in the background. It's like, come on, like I'm not.
But if you're riding for racial justice, you're not going to spread a deadly virus, right?
Obviously, of course. And well, my favorite were the people who was like, well, racial justice is deadlier than, or racial injustice is deadlier than COVID. I'm like,
your racism is scarier than a
just
Chinese
stop,
virus.
right?
Yeah.
And that's when I was like, okay. So this is utter total bullshit. And so then my wife and I had always talked about getting on land. We'd always wanted to.
But hold on, let me ask you to pause. What did you conclude from that? So it was, obviously, this was fraudulent.
This was a total fraud.
But like, why?
Well, see, I mean, I went to all the big schools. Like woke wasn't a shock to me. I saw that coming for years. And in fact, I had a company that was 70% women and all creative. So you think we would have been infected early. No, I saw it coming. I kept it out of Scribe. For as long as I was there, I was able to keep it out. It's actually, if you want a really easy trick to keep woke people away from your organization, there's a very simple way to do it. You just make your primary value responsibility and your second accountability, and those people will go elsewhere.
Because they're incompetent.
Not necessarily. Some of them are smart and capable. It's that the woke mind virus is about placing blame for your life on other people. So if everything is first about responsibility and accountability, those people will not come to your organization. And so I was able to kind of shelter my world from that. No, it works. It works beautifully. I was able to shelter my world from them pretty well. And so once I saw all this, at the time, we're talking about summer 2020, I'm like, okay, the woke mind virus has clearly infected media and these people are fools. I didn't realize how truly catastrophically corrupt government was until January 6th of 2021. Because, my wife and I decided to buy land the summer of 2020, and we bought our house in Tennessee that I showed you, that we talked about, right? And so, because at the time, I didn't really understand. I didn't think America was at the state it was yet. And, the way I looked at preparation and emergency stuff was a bug out place, right? And so we bought a beautiful house in the mountains, isolated, because that's where my level of consciousness and understanding was. Then January 21st happened, and in real time...
January 6th.
Sorry, January 6th. January 6th of 2021. And in real time, you just watched the feeds, and I saw, because it wasn't hidden. The Capitol Police were letting people in, and most of these people were just drunken buffoons, and it was like obvious that this was nonsense, that this was in no way, shape, or form anything approaching an insurrection. And then you would turn on cable news, and in real time, you'd see them form this narrative that's not just wrong, but literally totally contrary to what's going on, and I can see. I don't know why that moment, but at that moment I realized that the Republic had fallen. I don't think it fell at that moment. It had fallen probably decades, maybe a century before. But I did not truly internalize it until that moment.
When you watched them tell you what you were seeing wasn't real.
And it was something totally else. Media is always wrong. But just because they're wrong doesn't mean the opposite's true, right? So you have to kind of look in the direction that they're wrong. And in this case, the narrative that they were pushing was very clearly the narrative you push if you want to create a fascist, communist, whatever, some form of totalitarianism, a police state. And all the evidence was there. It's pretty common for you'll deny reality until all of a sudden the last piece of evidence clicks in, and then all the other facts are like, oh shit, I could have seen this a long time ago, and I waited. It was like that for me. You can make a good argument that the Republic fell in America. You can make an argument it fell during the Whiskey Rebellion. Yeah. Right? You can make an argument several times in the 18th century, definitely during the Civil War, lots of times in the 20th century.
Yeah, like when they murdered the president? Yeah.
Lots of times. JFK. I don't know when the American Republic fell, but it became very clear, undeniably clear to me on January 6, 2021, that we were not just an empire, but we were the late stages of empire. Like I'd essentially missed understanding the American empire was an empire. And I was like, oh man. And then once I got that, then I'm like, oh, now everything makes sense. This is empire collapse. And I understand empire collapse pretty well. Like I'm very, like all dudes, very interested in the Roman history and Mongolian history. And if you study both the transition from republic to empire in Rome and the transition from Genghis Khan to his sons, because they were never a republic, but under Genghis Khan, the Mongolian Empire was what we would consider a free place in a lot of ways, for at least Mongolians. And the transition from that to his sons and grandsons,
Less free?
Very different.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was empire collapse. And I'm like, this is exactly what's going on. And then once I got that was when my wife and I got serious about like, okay, we need to actually get ready for what's coming. Because it's going to be, I don't know what's coming, but it's the baseline of what's coming is going to be chaos. And we're going to see a lot more of what we saw, broken supply chains, riots, whatever, right? Like that's kind of the best case scenario is just more of what we saw in 2020. And so I kind of dove deep into the sort of prepper world. Most of it's nonsense. Most of it are clowns who don't know what they're talking about. But there are groups of people who I think are pretty sophisticated.
How long did it take for you to realize that your bug out place in the North Carolina mountains?
January 1st, 2021.
Is that right? So that's not adequate. Explain why that's not adequate.
Because, okay, when empire collapses, the thing that matters most is community. Who are you around? What skills do they have? What skills do you have? How well can your group band together and endure the tumultuous chaos until some new steady state arises? And having a cabin in the woods is the opposite of community, right? That was the old school American thought of prepping is really based on nuclear war and hiding a bunker, and like it's just nonsense. It's not really thought out. But if you go study End of Empire and you study people who've lived through intense chaos, they all say the same thing, right? Like there's a lot of when the Roman Empire, not the Republic, when the empire fell, there were lots of places that did great. Because, you can, some warlord or the local Roman general would just say, okay, like we're going to make this town my empire and the legions are going to marry local girls and this is our area. And those became, you can name them.
And
like
no
all
Visigoths allowed. No chaos.
Lots of parts of Gaul thrived for thousands of years, hundreds, if not thousands of years after. Because they had local rule, all the sorts of things that work. Now, the Roman Empire fell, but for a lot of people in the aftermath of that did really well if they had great community, right? Same with Mongolia, same with in a lot of ways the British Empire. The British Empire was a little different. It was a more modern empire. But the point is, my cabin in the woods had no community. And so my wife and I were like, where can we go to find community? How do we build a community? And it starts by not a cabin in the woods, but by raising your own food, taking responsibility for water, power, and food, but in the context of where a lot of other people are doing the same. And so we knew we wanted to stay in Texas for a few reasons. And we ended up picking Dripping Springs. There's a lot of like kind of towns in Texas that are doing things like this. Dripping's not the only one. It's the one that we like the best for a couple different reasons. So we bought a homestead. We bought a place, a beautiful ranch was not a homestead. We've had to convert it to a homestead, but whatever. And then we started a school and encouraged.
So what's the difference between a ranch and a homestead?
Well, generally speaking, a ranch is where you just like sort of raise livestock. But what we bought was, because I didn't know, right? I didn't really understand land. I bought a place that this older guy, this boomer, had kind of carved out of nothing, and it was beautiful, beautiful oak trees and rolling pasture, but it was dead. Literally dead. The soil was dead. Everything was dead because the way he dealt with the land was very 20th century kind of mentality. It was pesticides kill the bugs, herbicides kill the weeds. Fertilizer raises the grass. Like, that doesn't really work well. It works. It can work sort of for a while in certain circumstances. But if you want to actually have a living, thriving ecosystem, I kind of went deep in the permaculture and regenerative agriculture worlds, and I realized that those people had figured it out. And so what we had to do was stop all chemical. I had to fire all the people he had that were working there, the landscapers or whatever. Everything was irrigated. He had St. Augustine grass, which requires 130 inches of rain a year in Texas. Right,
you're not getting 130 inches of rain.
But he was irrigating. But nonetheless, it's like, what are we doing? This doesn't make sense with our land and where we are. And so the last 2 years, I've spent essentially turning it into living soil and regenerating the land and doing management practices that make sense for Dripping Springs, Texas, for 30 inches of rain a year. And and now we have it's not where it's going to be in 3, 4, 5 years, but it's good, man. We've got a big flock of sheep, bees. We have meat chickens, egg chickens. We have garden. We're starting to put in all kinds of stuff, and so we're totally independent water, totally independent meat, totally independent. We can be totally independent power. We're hooked on the grid because why would we be independent before we have to be? But we have a system where we can endure a lot of chaos and be totally fine. And we're surrounded by people in our community who are, for the most part, in the same position or very similar. They have similar values, similar approach to the world. That's why we started a Waldorf school literally 3 minutes from our
So for viewers who are not familiar with Waldorf, what is that?
So there's lots of different educational philosophies. Acton, Montessori, public school. Waldorf is a philosophy that started in Germany 150 years ago. And I think it is by far, of the educational philosophies, it's by far the best. It is the one that kind of feeds the emotional side. It's like a Renaissance style, right? Where it kind of tries to help
the whole child.
Help create the whole child. Of the educational styles, I think it's the best. That being said, I'm still not sure if organized schooling is right for kids or not. Because right now we have one kid I'm homeschooling because he doesn't have enough kids in his class for the Waldorf. There just aren't kids. He doesn't have a class there. But the other two are Waldorf. Waldorf's the best by far if you're going to go to a school. I'm on the fence about which is better or worse.
So all of your children are out of the public schools?
Oh, never went into public schools. My man, I don't hate my kids. I'm never going to send them to public schools. And
that raises a philosophical, and I want to put this to the President of the United States,
right,
with a message I think is relevant to you, which is that those are not your kids, actually. Here he is.
Rebecca put a teacher's creed into words when she said, there's no such thing as someone else's child. No such thing as someone else's child. Our nation's children are all our children.
So your kids are really his kids. He owns your kids.
It's like when people say, I'm coming to take your guns. Well, stack up and come get them. Same with kids. No, those are my kids, and those children are mine and my wife's. Now, I will say, let's give it a very judicious interpretation. If what he means, and I don't think this is what he means, but if what he means is, I don't own my children like they're chattel or slaves, that they are independent beings and my job is to steward them. Totally agree. Totally on board.
Yes.
In no way, shape, or form do I think my kids should live their lives based on what I want. They should live it on what they want. Totally on board. I see my job is to help them become full people and find the lives they want. I don't think that's what he means. I think what he means is the very typical bureaucratic, it's really a communist Marxist idea that children are the property of the state, that the citizens are the property of the state. That is.
And you disagree with that?
Disagreement's not strong enough.
It's not.
It's not a strong enough term. Yeah. There's just no chance that's going to exist in my world. Yeah. Just not.
So I always thought, of course I vehemently agree with you, but the number of parents who presumably love their kids more than their own lives, most parents do, I think, who are willing to let, not just Alzheimer's patients posing as president, but any representative of the state just kind of come in.
Do whatever they want to their kids.
Sexualize their kids, basically like kiddie porn shit with their kids, and they allow it. Why?
It's a good question. I don't know. because clearly I would never in a million years allow anything like that. I think most people can only give their kids what they got. And most people were raised by people who went to public schools, and they went to public schools, and they were public schools are designed to create obedient employees.
Yes.
That's the most charitable
Right.
Sort of interpretation.
It maintains the serf class. That's the point.
It does. And I'm not saying this isn't like a conspiracy theory or a metaphor. There's a guy, John Taylor Gatto, who wrote a couple great books about this. The literal stated goal. Horace Mann, all those people who invented the American public educational system, their stated goal is to create subservient employees who know how to be good citizens. And that's just I didn't have children for that reason, to serve some other man or woman or some faceless bureaucratic entity. No. And so if someone was raised by people who went to public school, who were just employees, and that's who they are, it's hard. I mean this not judgmentally. I can imagine it'd be really hard for that person to understand, well, this is where I went. This was good enough for me. They're supposed to be experts. Why wouldn't they know better? I can understand how a lot of people would get to that spot. Now, the good news is all this nonsense, lunacy with trans and other crap in schools, sexualizing little children, is a lot of people are starting to wake up and realize I knew this. I had never had any plan to send my kids to public school. That was never, I went to public schools mostly, and I realized how nonsense they were when I was there. My parents weren't very good, but they weirdly, they gave me a gift. They were not good parents. They weren't bad people. They were just bad parents. But their bad parenting gave me a gift. They didn't pretend that they cared. They didn't mix a lot of, seriously. People laugh, but I'm telling you, man, so many people.
That was the upside of my bad childhood.
No, it was.
My parents didn't pretend they cared.
So many people's parents or caregivers mixed love with abuse. And so many people see those two things together. My parents didn't really pretend they cared much. And so I never mixed love and abuse. And also they didn't really show up much for me. And so I realized at a young age that the adults weren't coming.
Yeah.
And the adults, for the most part, didn't know what the hell they were doing. They didn't ever pretend they were experts or knew what they were doing or had the right answers, right? And so it's they were so bad that in a way that they were good. They set me up to see the reality. Yeah, I mean, I
just love your attitude about your childhood. That's a wonderful attitude to have.
Well, I got there after a lot of emotional work, a lot of therapy, a lot of psychedelic medicine, a lot of work. I wasn't always like that. I was angry for a while.
It's pointless to be mad about the past.
Anger can serve a purpose for a period. If it gets you out of shame or other sort of essentially anti-life emotions, anger is a powerful motivating emotion. Yes. But if you stay stuck there, it's not good. I was stuck there for a while. Is
your wife totally on board with these attitudes?
100%. Oh yeah, my wife, I would not be married to her if she wasn't. If we didn't share these values, we were very aligned in a lot of stuff when we met, and she's done a lot of her own emotional therapeutic work as well, and we both have grown so much together over the last 10 years in parallel ways. But I've seen people who split in the last 3-4 years because their values just went different. The split was already there, but this kind of forced it.
So you've organized your life around surviving what you think is coming and protecting your family.
What's here? What's here now.
So what do you think?
And then what might come.
What do you think might come? What does that look like?
I have no idea, right? The range of outcomes, I think, are extremely wide.
But you're working to mitigate against those eventualities or those possibilities.
Well, you can't prevent everything, right? If an asteroid hits, Florida, nothing I'm doing is probably going to make any difference, right? It's 95% of people are going to die. It's going to be horrible. It's going to be Armageddon. And my, having a flock of sheep's not going to stop that. But, holding aside really, truly catastrophic, Noah's Ark type situations, I think the range of possibilities are basically, if we're seeing collapse of empire, American empire, which I think we are, not necessarily the collapse of the American state, but the collapse of the American empire, I think my whole life, basically, the American consumerist experience has been based on essentially free or low cost goods in everything, whether it's food or housing, or everything was really cheap or really easy to get. And I think if just that period is ending and nothing else, then we're in for a major shock. Culturally, a major shock. Maybe a lot of the rest of the world isn't. We are. Now, on top of that, unfortunately and sadly, I think World War III, whatever you want to call it, is inevitable. I think the U.S., without going too deep in this rabbit hole, the U.S. debt has gotten to the point where a war is necessary. I mean, it's all, when empires rack up too much debt, the only thing left for them to do to save it usually is war, and then that doesn't save it, that goes down.
Accelerates its decline.
Right, exactly. There was a point where the U.S. debt was totally saved, definitely during the Clinton administration, and maybe even as recently as the Obama administration. If the Fed had refinanced all of or a huge amount of national debt when the interest was essentially zero, we'd be in a very different situation, but they didn't. And so that plus the massive stimulus bills, what they were was graft. But that plus the response to COVID, we're past the point of no return. And so what happens when government defaults? War. And then a lot of other consequences from that. So I don't know the details. No one does, because I think there's a lot of ways it could play out. I just want to ensure, regardless of what happens up to a certain point, that me and my family and my community can endure that, because I don't think it's going to last forever. Disasters and emergencies don't last forever. There's an other side. I actually think America is really well set up to come out the other end of that in a really positive place. It's just going to be painful to get there, you know?
So here's one potential mid to short-term outcome, which is that we continue pushing for war with Iran.
Yes.
Which apparently doesn't yet have nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
We do, Israel does. The whole coalition arrayed against Iran has them, they don't. So how do they respond? Well, maybe they just unplug the United States. Maybe a cyber attack or EMP attack.
Who knows?
Takes out
totally possible.
Our digital life.
Totally possible.
So that would, I don't like to think about what that would look like, but where would that leave you on your homestead? Are you living a life that could withstand that?
I'm not a huge believer in, you have to be off grid and you got to be living like the Amish. First off, off grid doesn't exist. Even the Amish aren't off grid. If you think about it, like they don't mine their own ore and they don't smelt it, right? So not disparaging the Amish. Believe me, I've been, man, these dudes had some stuff figured out I didn't realize.
You're pro Amish, for the record.
But maybe pro certain things about Amish, but no, I don't think off grid exists, and I'm not a believer in if you're not doing everything hand, it doesn't work. I don't want to make my life hard for no reason. That's nonsense. Right. I just want to make sure that there is a lot of coming political and social upheaval. There's a lot of political and social upheaval now. It's already happening. And I think it's going to get worse. And I want to make sure that I'm in the best place possible to survive that. I'm not trying to go, be the Unabomber and live only off the land and only have things that, ancient men had. If you want to do that, cool. I like electricity.
But you're not making your own bombs like he did.
Dude, I like electricity. I like air conditioning. I live in Texas. I really like air conditioning. It's pretty crucial for us. I like modern conveniences. I want to continue using those as much as possible, and that makes sense. But I also, if I had to say, the big shift I've made in my mindset, man, is that I was, when I was in college, you don't go work for Goldman Sachs or go to law school unless you are deep in the consumerist mindset. I think that one of the major psychological shifts I've made is I've gotten out of the consumerist mindset to more of a shepherd mindset, right? I think it's one of the travesties that...
Can you just flesh it out a little bit? When you say consumerist mindset, what do you mean?
Consumerist mindset means I live to consume resources and status and most of our parents were. I want the house in the suburbs. I'm going to have these vacations. I'm going to go to these places. I'm going to have this rank in my society. It's an externally created identity, right? That consumer, because what do you even know what to consume, right? It's what your screen, what your media tells you is important and what you should be consuming. Where's your status come from? What matters? What car is cool or not? What clothes are cool or not? That's a consumerist mindset, right? I'm American, so I was deeply enmeshed and immersed in that growing up. But one of the great travesties, I think, of the last 30 years is that the conservation movement and the environmental movement weren't one and the same. They were kind of enemies for a long time. And I think, though, now you're starting to see the permaculturists and the regenerative agriculture and the hunters and the conservationists really come together and realize we're all on the same side, right? And I am a big believer, like your studio, right? Like, I really want to live in harmony with not just my family and my community, but the environment around me, the soil around me, the grass, nature. And everyone says that, but not many people actually do that. They live a life that is divorced from the actual soil around them and the trees around them and the animals around them. And the last 2 years, if you'd asked me 2 years ago if I live in harmony with nature, I'd be like, yeah, I like to think I do. I didn't at all. And I had no idea what it even meant to live in harmony with nature. And having a homestead, what's so awesome about having a homestead is that it has forced me to live in reality. You can have your phone, and consumerist mindsets, you can live in abstraction. Right? Everything is abstract. But when you live, whether having a homestead or a ranch or a farm or hunting, you have to actually pay attention to reality or nothing works. Nothing. Right? And it has grounded me in a way that I thought I was grounded, but I wasn't. And that's a huge reason why I wanted to get on land. My wife and I wanted to get on land is because we craved that in our lives. As we did emotional work and dealt with our issues, we felt the divorce from the world and wanted to get more integrated into the natural world, but then also wanted to raise our kids that way so that they never had to be divorced from that and had to find their way back to it. Right? The whole point of public school is to separate the child from the family and orient them in bureaucratic, corporatist, consumerist society. And I'm kind of torn because I like electricity and I like cool stuff, and I'm not I'm not shooting with a bow and arrow. I'm not hunting with a bow and arrow. But at the same time, I don't want all of the negative nonsense that comes with that. I want my children to grow up on land with their hands in dirt, understanding first self-knowledge above all things. And that is the opposite of what you learn in public. Everything public school is coming from experts, obey, do what you're told. Here's how life works. The way our children grow up, first and foremost, your body, your rules. Second, literally their body, their rules. That's my kid at any point can basically stop anything going on saying, no, my body, my rules. I don't want to go. I don't want to do that. And if it's not unsafe, right? Then I'm like, okay, all right, we got to figure. And so basic things like that, man, I wasn't thinking about until 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago. But having kids and getting on land, I didn't realize how poisoned and how toxic almost everything in our culture is. Not just American, the world. The way humans relate to each other, it just, ugh.
Give me an example when you say poisonous. What do you mean?
Food. You want to talk about food?
Yeah.
All right. So, virtually everything you find in a grocery store is at best unhealthy, at worst, literal poison. My favorite example, most people in America now for cooking use seed oils, canola oil. Canola oil was literally invented as a lubricant for machines. I mean, It was used, I forget the exact history of it, but it is machine lubricant. It is so toxic and horrible for the body, and it's in everything now. A huge reason that we wanted a homestead and to raise our own meat and our own vegetables is because it's really hard to get healthy food anywhere. Even at farmers markets, sometimes it's hard to get it. But like, go find something in a grocery store that doesn't have a seed oil in it. It's almost impossible. Even at Whole Foods. Unless you're on the outer rim, right? Unless you're taking a head of lettuce or something like that. If it's in a package, something like, I forget, 70+% of stuff in packages in Whole Foods has seed oils in it. And it's poison. It's absolute poison.
And do you feel the difference having gotten off it?
I mean, I'm 48 years old. It's just 2 days ago, some friends of mine were looking at one of my book covers, and the dude was like, "Did you look like what are you, a vampire? Like, you look like you haven't aged." I'm like, "No, I've aged. But unlike most people in our society, I have been eating healthy for the last 20 years. And most people, like, I'm 48. Most 48-year-old men are a minimum of 30 pounds overweight, can barely do push-ups or pull-ups, are close to death, like metabolically are pre-diabetes, right? Are horribly unhealthy. I don't even think I'm in that great a shape. I just don't eat the poisonous stuff. I'm like, okay, I'm going to try and only eat meat from my homestead. And like, I'm metabolically, if you look at all the markers, like my genetic age is like in the 20s. I don't do anything that special, man. I'm not like out, working out 6 hours a day or any nonsense like that. I just eat healthy. And healthy means like, I know where all my meat comes from. All the lamb and chicken I eat, born on my ranch, raised on my ranch, killed on my ranch, processed on my ranch, butchered on my ranch, eaten on my ranch. It's as God intended. Amen. What goes in it is grass and water, or bugs if it's chickens. That's it.
You mentioned God offhandedly.
Yeah.
Has your view of the eternal changed?
Radically.
Really?
Radically.
How?
So at 20, I think at a certain point in your life, if you are educated and you believe in God, this is going to be controversial. I don't mean it bad. I think you're stupid if you're not atheist at some point early on in your life, because I don't believe you can reason your way to God.
No.
Yeah, I know St. Augustine. Whatever. I'm with you. And Thomas More. Okay, fine. I just don't think you get to God from reason. And so I was atheist my whole life because God never made sense if you think logically.
Is that how you grew up?
I grew up actually in the Episcopal Church. Like, I was an acolyte in the Episcopal, but Episcopal Church is like a social club. It's not, you don't.
Yes, I'm very familiar with it. Yes.
I literally thought we went to church to eat donuts and socialize. I didn't know anyone believed that because it was preposterous to me, if you look at it reasonably and rationally. And then, it was about 4 years ago. It's funny. I drank a lot, never done any drugs in my life, ever, until I found, part of my therapeutic protocols, I did psychedelic medicine, right? Like MDMA, LSD, mushrooms, but like with a guide and not recreationally. Like, I don't know how you do that stuff. People who take LSD and go to concerts. I took LSD and cried and found God. And it was, the experience for me was not like talking to God. I felt the oneness of all things, and I felt the connection to all things. And I felt, I understood, like, I knew Jesus's and Buddha's teachings like, academically, but then I was like, it was one very specific experience. It was LSD. And I remember thinking, oh, fuck, the kingdom of heaven is within. Now I know what Jesus was talking about. Like, and if you meet a Buddha on the road, kill him. Like, oh, now I know what Buddha was talking about. And I have a really good friend who's Mormon, and he's the type of Mormon that, like, you meet some Christians and they just have that energy and glow, and you're like, if all Christians were like this, like the world would be. I
don't know what you're into, but I want to know more.
He's one of those guys. And I called him 2 days after my thing, and I'm like, Ben, when you say you have a relationship with God, you mean that literally. Like, it's an experience for you. He goes, bro, I've been trying to tell you this for a decade. And I'm like, I thought you were stupid. I thought you were fooled. I thought you just read the words and got fooled by them. what you have is the actual spiritual connection. He's like, yeah. And I did not understand religion. I did not understand spirituality or belief in God until I had the experience. And for me, I had to get there on psychedelics. I don't really feel like I do now. The psychedelics were important to open me up, but now I think I have enough of a connection to source, to God, whatever you want to call it. I'm very, very much a God guy, but not in the way most God guys are. Like, not a religious way. Like, I think religious dogma, some people need it and they like it, and that's cool. I don't need dogma. I think dogma gets in the way. And I think if you actually look at the teachings of Christ, and definitely the teachings of Buddha, they say the same thing, that the dogma is not the thing and is in fact in the way. Although Buddha will say, he says that, but he's like, I'll give you the Eightfold Path and all that to help you, but then you shed it when it's time.
Is your wife in the same place you are?
I think pretty much, yeah.
How's it changed your life?
I mean, that's like
because that's like a different way of seeing the world.
In every single way. I got past consumerism because of this. Because once you realize, not realize intellectually, once you feel the oneness, and some people can get there like at church, and some people get there with yoga. I'm not saying my way is better or worse. It's just the way. Once I felt the oneness of all things, all of the frivolities and the nonsense and the lies of the modern narrative fell away. And then for me, it was like, oh, of course, being connected to land matters. We're all energy. We're all part of the same system. I'm not different than this land or this chicken or this sheep. Yeah, I'm a human and it's a chicken, right? But we're all parts of the same system. We're all parts of God. And if you want to call the system God, I'm on board. And if that's true, then my entire approach before, that's what's toxic. Seeing myself as separate from this system, as different than the system. No, that's just not true.
Do you think, I don't know, maybe I'm imagining it, but it does seem like the people in charge do a lot to discourage these kinds of thoughts, these conversations, people coming together to have these conversations. They're very against religious faith.
Everything I just said is absolutely, completely, catastrophically counter to all things government, in all ways, shapes, and forms. I don't think it's an accident that the reigning governmental power at the time killed Jesus. I don't think it's an accident that anyone who preaches anything like this comes crossways of power, because most organized power tells you, however they frame the message from organized power is, you need me. You need me.
That's right.
And the message from Jesus and from God, let's just stick with Christianity, is you don't need them.
I knew I'd never met you before today.
Yeah, we've never.
And I have a ton of daughters, and I did when you were writing your books, and whatever. I wasn't living that kind of life, but I could tell you were a deep person. Even Thank reading, you. I hope they serve beer in hell. Not to brag, I turned out to be right. Tucker Max, thank you for spending all this time.
Yeah,
that was
thank
amazing.
you for having me, man.
I appreciate it. Free speech is bigger than any one person or any one organization. Societies are defined by what they will not permit. What we're watching is the total inversion of virtue. Hey, it's Tucker Carlson. The internet is crowded with interesting things that don't really matter. On TCN, we attempt to bring you interesting things that actually do matter, and a lot of them. Interviews, long form and short, videos, documentaries. You can find all of it on tuckercarlson.com, and we hope you will.